Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 2 of Silent and the Death Machine. He's Silent and I'm the Death Machine. Silent Mark, welcome back, son.
Thank you very much for having me again. Aaron Nix, everybody.
How you doing? All right?
I'm not too bad. Not
Good.
too bad. Can't complain. What about yourself?
Yeah, not bad. It's been it's been an interesting journey the last couple of weeks, especially recalibrating my mental health to where it needs to be, getting, the meds right and things like that. I'm going to be quite an open book with stuff like that, I think, on here. But I feel like I'm in a strong place mentally, not a good place in the sense of everything's right, because I don't think it ever is, but I think from a productive scale and with me building back up to my wrestling schedule, I'm going flat out in October, as a lot of people will know. I think that's going to really benefit me as well. So I think, we're starting to build towards a better kind of foundation for my mental health and for my well-being. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, man. How about yourself? How's the week been?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Tiring week this week. Very, very tiring. Monday, work, then radio. So another Monday evening show that I do. Tuesday was spent. Thank you very much. Tuesday was spent parenting, which went on very late because of open days for children and stuff. Wednesday, I had a very late one recording the State of Wrestling podcast, which I really enjoyed doing. A hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, if we can get you on regularly, obviously, time permitting, I would love to have you on regularly. For people who are wrestling orientated and maybe haven't checked it out yet, State of Wrestling address is kind of half wrestling news and half Silent and the Death Machine. So,
pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And it was a late one for me. I try not to go past 12 because I'm an old man now, but it was still good. I enjoyed it. And then last night so there's a band I've been playing on my show for years, a band called the Slackers, who are a ska reggae rocksteady type band, and it's stunning music, absolutely beautiful. And they played in Lancaster, where I'm from, last night. Now these guys have been going for like 30 years. They're from New York. They've played some of the biggest festivals in the world. They've played some of the biggest venues. They are very, very well known and very, very well respected in ska music. And they played Lancaster, which is fucking weird. Very, very fucking weird.
That is cool. Yeah, no, I kept up to date with social media. I saw like little snippets of it and they looked excellent. And yeah, no, I think it's really good that you've also got that outlet as well, because we get so bogged down with like what we're doing from a professional standpoint, whether that be work or looking after kids and that. It's important that we have these these adventures, these endeavors to keep us busy. I find that from a mental health standpoint as well, like I do so much better knowing that I have so much outside of the day-to-day.
Yeah. And it meant a lot to me last night because I don't DJ gigs. I've not DJ'd them for years. And back when I used to DJ them, I used to take offense when people weren't taking notice of the music I was playing, in my kind of younger, more naive days and stuff. Now I'm in a better place mentally that if I see one or two people dancing, to me, that's a good night done. If I see no one dancing and I'm enjoying the music, I'm enjoying the music. At least no one's coming up to me and asking me to turn it off or change songs. They're just enjoying it and listening to it. And so, yeah, it felt good last night. It made me realize I'm better with regards to mental health.
That's pleasing to hear.
I will let you guys know if I keep on doing this, it is because I'm checking to see if my kids are awake and messing about. So don't think I'm being weird, although I am. But that's not the point. But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
No, that's good.
A lot of fun.
And obviously you've got wrestling this weekend as well. Obviously these are pre-recorded, so we don't know quite when they'll go out as soon as we've got everything kind of sorted out on that. But Odyssey Pro Wrestling this weekend as well. So it'd be exciting to hear all about that process.
Yeah, it's going to be good. My process for that type of thing is simple. I go in, get the running order. Because we don't have to be kayfabe on here. I hate the fucking term, but we don't have to do that. I genuinely, when I go into a show, I don't look at who the winners are. I don't look at anything storyline based unless it's something that I need to be involved with.
Same here.
Like if someone comes in and has to grab the mic off me or has to do something to mess about with the match, unless something like that happens, I don't fucking take notice because I like it when it's a surprise to me as well.
Yeah. All fans at heart.
I knew where. Not just that. For me, it's more to do with I can make it more honest. I like to be as honest as I possibly can when I'm performing.
People are getting an organic reaction, aren't they?
Yeah. So if something happens, I have no fucking, like there was a rumble that we did. Ethan, the general manager, came out instead of Rick Marcus and tried to get Andre Decker. So Andre Decker was the first one in the rumble. Tried to get Andre Decker out. Ended up getting him to the floor, both of them at the same time. But Decker had gone through the ropes rather than over them. I hadn't seen any of it. I hadn't done anything like that. All they said to me was RPD was supposed to win the match. All RPD said to me was, don't, when I'm in the ring, start to announce it, but don't finish. Okay. I had no idea the rest of it. And so when the very hardcore fans, which we do have a lot of, when the very hardcore fans come up to me and go, this is wrong, why did you let this happen? You know, we went over and all this type of stuff. I can be honest with my general surprise because it brings more to them.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, the majority of what I do in wrestling now is either camera based or referee based. Although I will be wrestling a lot more next year, which is exciting. And yeah, like I'm a bit of a sadist. Like I really enjoy being in the mix. I remember doing for Rumble a ladder match between KM Lane and Tate Mayfair's, and it was a proper like hardcore affair, things flying all over the place. And you got to be in there. You got to be right in that bubble. And I almost got hit with a ladder, like missed me by a few inches and things like that. And people were sort of like, "Oh, you're taking your life into your own hands a little bit there." And I'm like, that's just kind of how I like to work. I like to be in there. I like to create a sort of first person, sort of visceral experience for people with what I'm recording. So I don't mind taking it, and obviously being trained as well, it makes it easier for me to take the physical shots. But I'm like
that's
you,
the thing though, with you it's a bit different though, because you have to know what's going on,
I
because
do to a certain degree. I think
the last thing you want to do is have a big piece that you miss because you're on the other side of the ring.
Well, this is why, like, some guys won't do it, but I will go around and ask the room, is there any particular set pieces I'm looking for? Are you going to be doing anything particularly high flying? If I got like Full Force, for instance, when I did their show, one of the guys did a shooting star to the outside and then also did a superplex for a table to the outside. Now, luckily, I checked and they were, very forthcoming in what they were going to do on the outside, because obviously if I wasn't in position or missed that, especially as there was no hard cam on that side, it would have, really ruined it. Like it would have been quite disappointing. So, yeah, no, I think I pride myself on preparation anyway and professionalism when I'm at shows, and I like to think that's why I get so many gigs. And yeah, no, I love what I do. I really do. It's my kind of happy place, and ironically enough, it's also where I probably garner most of my employment from, which is lovely. So yeah,
it's even better. The thing is, though, and one thing I will say, with regards to looking after your mental health, make sure you're giving yourself enough time for you. But I know it's lucky because you enjoy what you do and you enjoy that world, but occasionally sitting down and being you for a bit is something that's needed.
That's why stuff like this is almost like a level of therapy for me. I'm able to express myself and not necessarily have to be Mr. Bombastic, Mr. Aaron Nix, Aaron Nix the performer, as opposed to just Aaron Nix the human being, which is nice.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. As long as you are taking that time, because it's something I didn't do for a while, or it's something that I did too much of. I did too much of sitting down and doing nothing rather than doing something I enjoy. And I think there's a
Balance,
big
isn't
difference
it?
there.
Balance is
Very much
crucial
so.
to everything we do.
Very much so.
So what's on tap for this week, sir?
Well, last week, I still don't know if the pilots come out. This is episode 2, but we might not have released the pilot if it was shambolic. But
Nice, right.
Last week we did speak about films, which we are going to talk about today. We'll talk about general media and stuff we've been watching just to kind of geek out for a bit. But I want to start with something.
Let's go.
Last week you mentioned your pansexuality.
Yes.
And I mentioned that I don't think sexuality exists.
Please elaborate.
A comedian that I like, and that I know quite well, a guy called Ian Boldsworth, has always said that he's historically heterosexual. And the more comfortable I've become in myself and the more comfortable I've become in my own skin, the more, obviously, when you're young, you think, oh, I can't say that a man's good looking or anything like that because, oh, you don't want to be that gay bloke. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. I think the older I've got, the more I've become comfortable with my own sexuality. More to admit that if Ryan Reynolds came up to me and said, I want to fuck you, I'd probably go, yeah, all right. I genuinely think, and the more I've thought about it, the more I've thought it makes sense. Sexuality doesn't exist. You just have a preference. And the reason being is because if you are a gay person, if you're someone who's attracted to the same sex, or if you're someone who's heterosexual, there is still going to be, and I genuinely think there is still going to be one person that will come up to you of the opposite preference that you'd fall in love with and want to be with. So me as a heterosexual man, there will be one person in the world who is a gentleman who will come up to me and I will be like, I'm genuinely in love with you. And like the gayest people, and I even said this to a couple of my friends, and they're like, no, it never happened. I said, you can't say it never happened. Do you think that I'd fall in love with a gay man? And be like, yeah. But then you'd fall in love with a woman. You'd be able to. You might not ever meet them, but there is always the opportunity. Just because you haven't met them so far doesn't mean it will never happen. Everyone has a preference, but there is always going to be the one that turns.
So in that case, do you not believe in the labels? Because obviously you've referred to yourself as a heterosexual man, which kind of flies in the face of what you've just said, that you don't believe in sexuality.
Which is why I kind of liked the historically heterosexual thing. I think instead of it being my sexuality, it's my preference. I think everyone in the world is pansexual. Because I've had partners that were pansexual because they've always had a preference, but they've always liked both sides of it. You spoke about that last week for yourself. I've known bisexual people who generally don't care. I've met gay people who very much like men or very much like women, but they will also turn around and go, oh my God, they are stunning. And it can be the opposite of their preference. I would say preference more than sexuality.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Sexuality's it's a weird thing to look at depending on who you are, because for a lot of us, labels can be quite important. I spoke about labels last week, not really subscribing to left or right in political views. And I was very fascinated by this idea of no labels at all, which is kind of where this falls, is like, because as soon as you put a label on it, there's an assumption of there's a wall built around it and that's it. Like, you're in a heterosexual box, I'm in a pansexual box, whatever it might be. And obviously with pansexuality, well, it's more like a circle, let's be real. But it's that thing of,
it's not a circle. You've got one wall and anything fucking goes around it. That's it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And whether you choose to cling on to the wall or move away from it is entirely a preference. I'd be interested to see what people say. Like, I have a lot of obviously very gay friends, and people who only subscribe to being sexually attracted to one gender, and those people would say, no, I would never find somebody else sexually attractive. What would you say to that?
Yet. That's all it is. It's yet.
What
You just
that
haven't
falls
met them.
down to, I think what that comes down to is essentially what you're saying is that nobody can be 100% sure that they will only ever be attracted to one person.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because I imagine the feedback, or the kickback, or whatever you want to call it, from people would probably be, well, I know who I am, and I know full well, because I don't feel like, me personally, I don't feel like, I know you anyway, so I know you wouldn't be this way anyway, but I imagine a lot of people might take that as somewhat of an attack, as if to say, you're trying to insinuate that I don't know my sexuality as well as I think I do. Not necessarily. I think what I'm getting from it is this idea of, in a very kind of very layman's terms, never say never, so to speak.
No, exactly that. The problem is, and I say problem, but it's fucking valid. People who are, anyone who isn't heterosexual that wants to argue this with me, I will 100% bow out to you. I have my feelings as to why what I'm thinking is right, but the problem is people from the LGBTQ plus community have had millennia of being told they're wrong, of being frowned upon, of being demonized and stuff like that. Me adding on to that is not what I'm wanting to do in the slightest. My argument really is towards heterosexual people, because heterosexual people will always turn around and go, no, we'll never be attracted to a man, never be attracted to a man. I've had female colleagues of mine at work go, no, never be attracted to a woman, ever. I will never be attracted to a woman. I'm just went, yet. With the LGBTQ plus community, their life has been defined by their sexuality. So bringing up the fact that it's not so much a sexuality, more of a preference, it feels like it's taking something away from them, which is not what it's meant to do. Saying that the argument's more towards the heterosexual community, saying that their heterosexuality is a preference, is like, so for years, I didn't like onions. I would not eat onions in anything. I would always say, I am not a fan of onions. My preference is I don't like onions. Now, I will happily eat onions. For me, that is sexuality. I have a preference, my tastes change. There are some things my tastes will never fucking change on. But that's just because, again, that's the way I see it. With heterosexuality, you can argue more that it's a preference. But I can see where you're coming from. I don't want to be that person that attacks it. I don't want to be the person that belittles their sexuality and their preference. But you can argue the same thing throughout the board.
Yeah, it's not just sexuality. So, like, I sort of briefly touched upon racial discrimination and suffering a lot of it when I was younger, and still to this day. And anyone who knows me knows about, the stories and things like that. But, like, for instance, people will vehemently hate racism, as they should. But I think it's very ignorant to say that you are outright not a racist or have never ever had it. Like, we all subscribe, sometimes subconsciously or unknowingly, to somewhat racist behavior, or somewhat, shall we say, not necessarily racist, but even just kind of like non-conformist behavior. There's always going to be a mental makeup behind us of that person made me uncomfortable. It may not necessarily be because of their skin tone or how they appear or how they speak or their language, or whatever it might be. But there's always going to be something there. I don't think anyone, I hate purity. The concept of purity fucking infuriates me. I meet people all the time and they're just like, oh, I could never do this. I could never do that. And I was like, at some point, your brain will not have developed enough where you possibly could have done that just because you haven't done it. And nobody's also saying on the flip side, we're all a little bit racist, which I hear all the time. Not necessarily. I think what I'm trying to insinuate is that we've all been uncomfortable with something, which in any person's subjective ideals could be classified as some form of xenophobia or racism, or even just a phobia in general. So it's never as black and white as, oh, I don't have a racist bone in my body. Maybe not, but you might have a certain level of intolerance towards something.
No, exactly. Massively. And that type of stuff is learned. I can see why people, especially since 2001, people got all up in arms and all panicky and all very, very racist when it comes to Middle Eastern people. I was very, very lucky from an early age where I lived. My mum was a house mistress in a boarding house. And the school we went to had people from all over the world coming there. I started living there when I was 5. So from 5 years old, I'd see people from all over the world. When you're that young, and it's something my son has in spades, he doesn't have nastiness, he has curiosity. So he will ask, why is that person a different color? Why is that? And it's something I did when I was younger. I said, why do you look different? And they're like, oh, I'm from here. And when they tell you, it's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Fair enough. That's it. That's where it ends. So I was lucky enough that I don't want to say that I don't see color thing. I see color fucking everywhere, but I don't give a shit. It's down to your actions where I have that. Yeah, if you're a dick, I don't care what color you are. It's as simple as that. But like you say, we all will catch ourselves going, oh, fair enough, shit. That might be a bit touchy.
Yeah.
I might be being a bit Daily Mail at this point.
The Daily Fascist. Yeah, like racism is like, do you know what interests me? There was a little thing you touched upon there is curiosity. And we've now got to a stage where not everyone, but there's a certain demographic of people in every single race and culture and creed and religion that is of the opinion of you shouldn't have curiosity, you should just accept what I am as fact. And it's like, nobody's saying we can't accept you as fact. There's nothing wrong with educating yourself. I like it when people come up to me and they say, what's it like being brought up in a Muslim family? What's it like having sisters who are Islamic? What's it like, talk to me like, do you practice Ramadan and things like that? I don't see that as an offensive thing to ask. I don't see what's wrong with wanting to know more. It's all about tone, and it's all about, your cadence and how you ask questions and things like that. Most of what is an issue in our society with racism and abuse and whatever label you want to throw at it is down to a lack of education. It's down to not asking questions. Like, I know a lot of people, or I've met people in my life who are fearful of the Black community, fearful of the Muslim community, fearful of LGBT or whatever. It's fear. It's never outright hatred. Hatred is born of fear. You condition yourself to being so scared of a different ideal, or being told, or maybe it's being, conditioned through your family or your culture. People like to blame it on culture, which is fine to a certain degree, but this all comes down to free thinking. We don't, as a society, promote free thinking at all. And for instance, obviously, I've got 2 little sisters. One's in school and one is studying at university. And the way that they're taught and the way that they're thinking and the way that they're brought up, what makes my little sister so special, for instance, who's 15, is the fact that she's super open-minded and free-thinking and already subscribes to being bisexual, already understands different relationships. I feel like children at that age are maturing so much faster than we did when we were in school. It was very traditional and very kind of bland almost, and very, there wasn't much variety for us to explore in terms of our culture. And obviously now we live in a much more diverse society, but where she lives in a predominantly Muslim area, it's highly populated, and she goes to a school that has a lot more, like, I was the only person of any kind of foreign background at my school. Very white school, whereas hers is entirely the opposite. If I went to school, at her school now, I would be considered a minority for whatever reason. But I hate this concept of society now doesn't really support free thinking. And a lot of parents, I imagine, I'm not sure. I mean, how do you see, like, you're a parent, I'm not, so I can't speak about how to raise children or how they are influenced by society around them. Do you feel like you're pushing back against what their formal education is?
I don't know. That's a difficult question. They're both in a Christian primary school. When my daughter was my son's age, she was very Jesus-y. She'd come home and tell us about Bible stories as if they were facts. My son is currently doing the same. We were very, very open. Me and my ex were very open with what we were, with our feelings about it. We didn't just blanket say out to her, there isn't a God. But we both turned around and went, well, we consider ourselves atheists or agnostics, whereas we don't think there's God, but there may be. And if you want to believe that, absolutely fine. And the more she thought about it, the more Sophia thought, no, maybe there isn't. But we haven't said, no, don't believe in that. Because again, it's up to them. They can think whatever they want. We're not going to go to church because we think that'd be hypocritical. The last thing we want to do is go, right, you guys should do this. We just don't want to.
Because then it turns into influencing. I think that's the big thing there, is making sure that you educate people without influencing their opinion. Mm-hmm. Don't tell somebody what they should believe in, just tell them what you believe in.
Yeah. When it comes to everything else in the world, we are teaching more about love and respect than other things, because I think that's where the world is falling down, really. Like you say, free thinking's not really taught. Love and respect is kind of taught, but again, especially in Christianity, it's taught up to a certain point. And anything over that, no. I'm also trying to teach, with regards to curiosity and stuff like that, of saying things in the right way, of being very much in the line of don't judge someone of who they are based on anything about them other than their actions. I'm finding at the moment, when you said that the problem is kind of intolerance and lack of free thinking, I do find that is from both sides. When I said last week, where I will argue with someone that I agree with if they've got too into their own argument, I find this very, very difficult with the trans debate. Because I am 100% on the trans person's side. 100%. And I will fight alongside you however I can. One thing I've found is that people aren't allowed to make mistakes. When it comes to misgendering, when it comes to calling people by the wrong name, if people are doing it on purpose, yes, they're dicks and they need to fucking sort their shit out. If people are doing it accidentally, I think it needs to be given a bit of a break. On both sides, on the trans person side, because people make mistakes. It's what we do as human beings. But on the other side, we as allies, again, I fucking hate the term, but we as allies, we need to do more. We need to try a little bit harder, rather than just kind of sweeping it under the carpet and going, yeah, we're on your side. Try a little bit harder to learn and to try and be more open with it. But I don't, and I'm trying to teach the kids, you're allowed to make mistakes. Making mistakes is part of being human. It depends how you make those mistakes. If you make so with the kids, if they make mistakes in their homework, if they get answers wrong, if they make a mess or anything like that, if they do it because they've made a mistake, absolutely fine. This is how you fix it. If they make a mistake because they're just being stupid and they're being dicks, that's when the trouble comes in.
Mm.
And I think that happens throughout life. People can make mistakes, but if you're making a mistake because you're a bellend, fucking stop it. If you're making a mistake just because you've had your thoughts gone, I dead named a friend of mine not that long ago. And it was literally because I was thinking of their old work and stuff, and that's where my head was at, and it was all over the place, and I just happened to do it, and I was straight away, fucking, I'm so sorry. Luckily, he's very, very accommodating and understands where I come from, because I think if you say things with love and if you do things with love, they can see where you're coming from. So, but yeah, everyone can make mistakes, but it's how you make them.
Yeah, the mistake thing is actually becoming quite prominent in my life. So, as you know, wrestling is a very trust-laden activity. You are giving people essentially carte blanche with your physicality. And there's an individual, I can't name them for legal reasons and things like that, but there's an individual I know who works quite prominently for a company that I work for. And, he made national media for a mistake he made in wrestling. And it cost him the ultimate price, 6 months of his life. He was put in prison for assault, essentially. And this person in that moment made a decision, conscientious or not, to essentially violently assault, only very briefly, but still violently assault an individual. And
is this the one you told me about the other week?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So this individual spent 6 months of his life locked away for that one moment, that brief fleeting moment where he lost his head. And thankfully, from what I can tell, the individual, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but the individual who was assaulted has, made a full recovery, at least in terms of physicality, and obviously mentally, I don't know. So, and, on the flip side, this guy has, sacrificed 6 months of his life and we'll never get that back. And for me, whatever I say, like, I remember when the moment happened, I remember going on my podcast and saying, this person's a piece of shit for what they've done, and they deserve what they got. And I still subscribe to that. But I also now know this person personally, professionally, mentally, and my judgment is that they're actually an astonishingly good human being who made a terrible mistake in that moment. Their rehabilitation and their passion for life and their general care for people is amazing. If you met them, you'd be astounded to think this is a person who was capable. And that's where I've learned. I think this moment has taught me a really valuable life lesson more than anything else, is that even something as bad as it might have been perceived, it wasn't the mental makeup or the entire makeup of who this person was. He made a choice, a terrible, stupid choice, and paid the price for that. But obviously it raises difficulties going forward, because not everybody's accepting of the idea of people like this being reintegrated. I have no problem with it. I trust that this person could work with me and we would have a good time and I would enjoy the process and I'd learn from it, and that my safety would not be in question. And I imagine the first argument a lot of people would say to me, it's easy for you to say, you're 6'4" and 300 pounds and blah, 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 and you can handle yourself. I was like, it's got nothing to do with that. Anyone with a swift, strike can be brought down. That's just the way it is. I think it's more a case of, I'm very passionate about the idea of people seeing what I believe to be the real human being. And it comes back to that argument of, I would very much like people to understand that unless, like, what he did is horrible, but it isn't a career-ending incident. He hasn't taken someone's life. He hasn't done something so, like, it's morally reprehensible, but I mean, there are always layers to this. And what he's done is not nearly as morally reprehensible as, say, what other people might have done who have spent time in prison or are still, spending time in prison for. But
it's not just so. But with that, it's not just that. You've got people in our business who have done morally reprehensible things, and thank fuck those people aren't fucking working anymore. Not in jail, unfortunately, but very, very touchy whether they're going to be working. With the things that they've done, it's documented that everything's premeditated and stuff like that. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing. You can't look at someone like that and go, well, what happened like 2 seconds before that? I don't want to mention anything slanderous or anything like that, but, and you can beep this bit out. I don't give a shit. Beep it out and see how funny it is. Keep that bit in, though. You can't turn around and say, oh, he'd just been punched in the face, so he sent his dick to a 12-year-old. You can't. That won't happen. Whereas if someone is violent towards someone else, again, you've got to look at what happened before that.
Context.
Was it a brief lack of judgment, or was it?
Because it wasn't premeditated. That's I'm truly of the opinion that it wasn't premeditated. They didn't go into that scenario thinking, by the end of this scenario, I'm going to try and ensure that this person has been physically assaulted to the best of my capabilities. It was a spur of the moment thing where, he had a pre-existing injury that had flared, and in that moment, red mist had been seen, and he had decided to hand out a receipt in our business, which is actually incredibly common. Unfortunately for him, it led to pretty, destructive damage on the individual that he gave the receipt to. And I'm of the opinion that 6 months in prison is more than enough punishment. That may not necessarily be the case for some people, and that's fine too. But I don't particularly want to see someone who I think is a good person, someone who's been incredibly kind to me, has been incredibly generous with their time, and has benefited me with a lot of opportunities as well, and helped me on my journey. I don't want to see that person completely alienated from any society, much less the society that I work in, based solely off of that indiscretion. Especially when there are people who still work or are finding work who have done, in my opinion, far more reprehensible things that were premeditated.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's an argument on both sides.
It's a tough one because I can't go into depth with it because there is obviously legal ramifications and things of that nature. So, I won't touch on it too much more. But the bottom line is, I'm using it as an example. Even somebody who's, I have friends, for instance, that have gone to prison. They're good people. They made mistakes. And surely their sentencing was enough. Now, luckily for me, none of them have gone to prison for anything that we would consider extremely morally reprehensible. Normally things like drugs, I don't know, money issues or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's never black and white. And I think this is the problem with crime, is that, especially now, we mentioned this last week with Snowflake Media and stuff like that. The media will only show you the most reprehensible and horrific things now. They won't show you the success stories. They won't show you the glamorous side of life that can be achieved if you work hard. Nobody's going to, for instance, the individual I'm speaking about has actually done a lot of stuff to help rehabilitate communities and things like that, and has actually won awards for art and stuff like that since being released. They're not going to talk about that because that doesn't fit that medium, that demographic. It doesn't fit their narrative that this person was an awful human being. We seem to just draw a line. As soon as you do something awful, you make a mistake, we draw a line under it and say, right, that is what defines you as a person. You could do 50 years of charity work. You could accidentally run over a squirrel and people will be like, that's that cunt who ran over a squirrel.
But again, it depends on who you are as a person. It depends on the type of person you are to whether or not you are going to be thinking that person's reprehensible, or whether that person gives a bit of a, needs a bit of a break. You can be someone that's more understanding,
Mm.
or you can be someone that's completely blind. Either way, you know, some people are still fans of Ian Watkins, for fuck's sake.
You see, that's for me, when I see that, if people are still willing to find, this horrific human being and his crimes, if people can still say, I'm a fan of that person, then I don't find it acceptable that we can't not necessarily give a pass, but allow this individual that I'm speaking of to have an opportunity to rehabilitate and reintegrate.
Yeah. There's, again, it's where what we said last week, the truth is in the grey area.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there is no black and white. There is no black and white. There just isn't.
Yeah. I mean, on some things there are.
But, yeah.
You know.
Well, the problem is, even when there are things where there should be, there's always going to be those people. See, having shades of grey isn't necessarily always a good thing either. Because certain things, like, you mentioned Ian Watkins, that's as black and white as it comes to me. Piece of shit, die in prison. So, and that's, and people might say, oh, hang about, you've it's on a case-to-case basis. You can never truly say outright that, right, you're all in this bracket. You can't throw blankets over things. You can't just be that fucking broad, because once you do that, once you generalize, all of a sudden, you just become part of that problem, because you're then contributing to a very dangerous and a very judgmental society. And through that, people stem other beliefs, other thoughts, other ideals, which can be quite damaging, quite toxic to the overall makeup of what we're supposed to be.
And you can describe it all in 2 names. So, for example, firstly, what do you think of Gary Glitter?
Gary Glitter is just, he's just a rotten person, isn't he? Like, he's just through rotten to the core. Like, but then I'd be lying if I said that his music hadn't in some way influenced my life. I think it's Rock and Roll Part 2 is such a it's so embedded in sports culture. It's a song that's played, like, if you go to basketball games, baseball games, especially in America, American football and stuff like that, that song is like one of the most prominent things. And I remember you did that podcast quite a while back where you were discussing with one of your American friends this ability of, can you disassociate yourself from what?
I'll come on to that. I'm coming on to that name in a second.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it feels. Because, like, for me, I can openly say that I think Gary Glitter is a piece of shit, and I hope he rots. That being said, I still listen to Rock and Roll Part 2 and get a certain level of emotion and feeling from that based on where I've heard it, nothing to do with the artists themselves.
What about Elvis Presley?
Again, like, I wasn't aware until I listened to that podcast about what had happened with Elvis Presley. Luckily for me, I've never really been a fan anyway. I can recognize his talent as an artist, and I think the movie is particularly spectacular, actually. But for me, I've never been a fan of Elvis Presley, so I'm not as conflicted in that. I'm never going to go out of my way, for instance, to play Elvis Presley in my house. I'm just not. There's not really any sort of, I actually prefer a lot of the covers of a lot of his songs done by other people, but that still inherently is affected because he was originally the person who made those songs or wrote them or performed them for whatever reason. So it's again, I don't see it as black and white as, right, here's a list of all the artists who might have done something wrong. It may have been something as simple as robbing a pencil, or it might have been robbing someone of their life. I have to look at each individual and what they've done as to whether I can disassociate myself. For instance, I don't listen to the Lost Prophets anymore. I used to love the Lost Prophets. I used to listen to them quite religiously. I used to think they were fantastic. I loved their music. I thought it resonated with me really well. And, it was embedded in WWE culture as well and things like that, and wrestling culture. A lot of their songs were used for highlight videos and things of that nature. But I don't personally listen to them anymore because, luckily...
Last Train Home now has a different connotation.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing, Elvis Presley and Gary Glitter, both of them very good musicians. Only one of them's getting a film made about them. Both of them fucked 13-year-olds. How good do you need to be as a musician to be able to get away with something like that?
Do you think that the reason that we don't tar Elvis with the same brush is because he got himself to such a meteoric standard in terms of popularity that we're willing to forgive that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas someone like Bill Clinton, however, became president of the free world, the United States, and yet was much maligned and is still for that mistake with a cigar, which, might I add, was by all accounts a consensual act.
Yeah.
Albeit morally reprehensible.
Yeah. And yet, look at the same thing on the other side. You know, Bill Clinton loses his job based over wanking on a woman's dress. Donald Trump, on the other hand, nearly destroyed the country and got let off.
And he's essentially still revered by the right wing.
Exactly. There's
it's cultish behavior, is what that is.
Yeah. And that's where it comes down to, you know, the people who are still fans of Lost Prophets, that are still fans of Ian Watkins, sorry, there is the cultish thing underneath it. So going back to the people make mistakes, there are always going to be people who are dead against them. And there's always going to be people who are like, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. The middle ground is where the truth lies. It's not fine, but this person's taken ownership of the mistake they've made and they've worked it out. They've served their time, they've served their punishment, and they're working through things to make it better. That's where the honesty is.
Yeah. Yeah, not much else to add, to be honest, mate.
Again, very, very, it's such a shame when I sound correct. It shouldn't happen. Shouldn't fucking happen.
Well, it's nice to be correct from time to time, to be fair.
Occasionally. Right. Occasionally. I promised to myself we wouldn't make it this deep.
Really?
This week. Yeah.
You said that to me on our first date.
I did. Luckily, it's only that big. It's like a disappointing thumb.
I mean, I felt it had plenty of stopping power, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You know the old term, like it's throwing a hot dog down a hallway. It's like throwing a tic tac to a whale.
Yeah, tic tacs in a whale. I've heard that one. I need to write that one down.
Listen to the song "Hot Dog in a Hallway" by NoFX. There's loads of them.
Excellent. I need more material.
My friend Stallion, big name in wrestling up in the Northeast, is Stallion, even in the Northwest as well, did commentary for PCW for ages. He said the best one ever to me. And I will always say it, and I will always preface it by the same thing, because I will always say that he said it, because it's fucking genius. He said, it's like opening the window and trying to fuck the night.
That's so deep in so many ways. I love that.
Beautiful. It's poetic.
It's actually very poetic in a very grotesque way. Beautiful.
Stunning.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Absolutely
stunning.
Because it's so good, I can't say it's mine. It's one of those that's so fucking brilliant. I need to give props every time I say it. Right. We mentioned Lord of the Rings last week.
Yes. Yes.
And how I dislike it.
Yes.
And I did mention I've tried to watch it again. I have tried to watch it again in my adult form. And I still couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't.
Fair enough.
What I thought about was controversial film thoughts. Whether they're good films that you think are shit or shit films that you think are really good. So, for example, me, Lord of the Rings, can't fucking stand it. Wish I could, can't fucking stand it. Fuck. Fight Club. I don't get it.
I think it's overrated.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad film, but I think it's overrated.
Yeah. No, Donnie Darko as well.
I think like the great thing about it is its interpretation, isn't it? Like with Donnie Darko, there's a lot of mental. So, for instance, we mentioned it very briefly on this week's State of Wrestling Address. Cam is 20, 21 years old, and he doesn't. He thinks the Joker is pretty boring. He didn't. He thought it was meh. And I said to him, "I'd really like to hear your opinion on it when you're 40, when you're older, because for me, I have had so much of my life, for better or worse, dictated by mental health. So when I watched Joker, it resonated very powerfully with me. And it resonated so much with the people. And it's the only film I've ever gone to. It got a standing ovation at the end. It's not like fucking Phoenix is going to hear that. No. Everyone just naturally stood up and started applauding and cheering because it was just like, holy shit. Like, that just hit hard with me. And that's kind of up to interpretation based on your personal feelings. Most of the people I know who enjoyed Joker even in a more morbid context, because it's not exactly the most pleasant film, it's because they were able to relate. And obviously the scene with the mental health and things like that, and when he puts a bullet through Robert De Niro, for me is I imagine like older people, especially like my stepdad and my parents and things like that, they spoke very kind of openly about how life-changing it was to see The Exorcist and what that meant to them at the time. People would come out of the cinema and they'd be throwing up and fainting and passing, and like it was truly groundbreaking and stuff. Same with The Shining. And then for me, the scene where he shoots Robert De Niro is kind of my moment of like groundbreaking cinema for me. As a youngish person, I suppose. I see that and I think, oh wow, like that still to me resonates more than pretty much anything else I've seen in the cinema. Controversial opinions. I think The Lion King is fucking shit. Best part of that film is when he turns on him and kills him. Great heel turn. Like, as far as wrestling goes, great theatre. Long live the king. And,
good, really good, real good heel turn.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it's one of the worst Disney films. I think it's fucking tepid. Remake's not too bad. Okay. Maybe because I'm a bit of a snob and I like all this hot CGI and stuff. I think there's about 20 or 30 Disney films that absolutely swamp it.
I would say that it's not the best Disney film, but it's still a fucking classic. And I think that's probably because of where I was at the time when it came out. I was 6. And
do you know what? I didn't see it until I was in my early 30s.
That's why you're going to think it's shit, because it's a kid's film.
Well, yeah, but then for instance, I love Secret Life of Pets. I think that's really funny. And that's a kid's film. I love Madagascar. I think that's hilarious. I love all the Madagascar films. Love the penguins, love the characters. Obviously, it resonates with me more. But the thing is, like, people would say, why don't you like Lion King? Because you love animals so much. And it's that thing of like, and I've been to Africa and I've been on safari and I've seen the wild animals, and maybe because I did that first, that's probably resonant. It's not as black and white as it's shit. And, it's just, I just don't like it. I just think it's fucking tedious.
The thing is, early Disney films didn't have the thing of we need to entertain adults as well. Whereas now, modern day films, you mentioned Secret Life of Pets, you mentioned Madagascar, you mentioned penguins, minions, all that type of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of adult humor. So you can sit down as a 30-year-old without kids and enjoy it as a film because you'll like all those bits in between it. Lion King has none of them. It's a fucking kid's film.
What did you watch as a kid? Because, like, for me, I don't know if this is because I had a strange upbringing or even a bad upbringing or whatever, but I always watched adult stuff when I was a kid. So my favorite TV series was Man from U.N.C.L.E. And like a lot of people will only know Man from U.N.C.L.E. as the film that had Henry Cavill, and
which is still a classic. It is a good film.
I actually really like that film, although it's very different source material to the original. And that's fine because the original only for me worked in that way. I like the somewhat tongue-in-cheek, cliched, cheesy spy stuff. And I loved Ilya Kuryakin, especially. It was like my hero, David McCallum, who's still to this day amazing in acting. He's in NCIS and he's still doing theatre and stuff. Obviously, sadly, Robert Vaughn passed away. but for me, like I watched Man from Uncle, I watched the A-Team. Blues Brothers was my favorite film, and still is. I still love the Blues Brothers. But
Beautiful
that
film.
again, and it's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people, if you actually look at source material from back in the day, it wasn't actually that much of a commercial success, despite its like the cast is insane. It's a who's who of music. Not to mention a lot of famous actors and actresses.
And not to mention the most expensive car crash scene or car chase scene that there has ever been.
It just, believe it or not, it got beaten recently. It held the Guinness World Record for the most cars involved in a car crash until G.I. Joe Cobra.
Really?
Which apparently has topped it. Yeah.
It won't beat it though.
No,
as a visual thing, it will fucking beat it.
And no, I'm not watching those films. I'm not watching G.I. Joe.
I just the thing I love about that is because I can see how the writing went on it. Of it being mainly a music and comedy film, the writing on it went right. This'll happen. Blues Brothers will fly over. The cop car will crash, and then the next one will crash, and the next one will crash, and then someone went, "What about a couple more?" All right, fair enough. And put a few more on top of that and just keep going and see when it stops being funny and then do a few more and then it'll become funny again. So you can do a few more after that. And that's where it was. That will be where the
more is more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because to me, the funniest things are where it's pointless and it's really funny. And then it stops being funny and just starts being silly. And then the ludicrousness of it becomes funny again. Tim Vine is amazing at it. Stuart Lee is amazing at it. There are so many really fucking good comedians where it is just so fucking stupid. And the longer it goes on for. One of my favorite Monty Python sketches is where it's the arts program. And they introduce the piece about the German composer, and he's got this really fucking ludicrously long name, and they say the whole thing every single time. I'm gonna have to get it up because no, I can't because it bastard.
I might be able to splice it in. You'll probably be able to get away with it on copyright, splicing it into the audio, so I can splice it in for you if you want.
Yeah.
I don't know about YouTube because obviously they're a lot more hot on the copyright and things of that nature. But yeah, no, I vividly remember stuff like that. Like Monty Python was very important to me. Fawlty Towers was very important to me. Anything with John Cleese I thought was phenomenal and still to this day enjoy. And yeah, no, humor's so subjective, just like anything.
Oh, very much so.
But like for me, the Blues Brothers is one of the greatest films of all time. If it's definitely probably up there. It's in my top 5. But then my top 5 is very eclectic. So what other dangerous opinions do you have?
Avatar's a piece of shit.
Considering it's the highest budgeted movie of all time, I think it got overtaken by Endgame. Then it overtook Endgame again when they released it in China.
Yeah,
cheeky bastards. That's such a snide thing to do. Oh
yeah.
Oh, you've overtaken us, have you? Here you go. Give it to China now, so we can get back in the lead. I don't know if Avatar 2 will ever happen, or if it's. I reckon it's an urban myth.
It is. There's been trailers for it.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll believe it. But I went to see that in the cinema, and I must admit I liked it, but I didn't think it was spectacular. I think
my problem was it when I saw it. There was a scene right near the end where it's the big fight between all the shitty dragon things and helicopters. There's one bit where one of the helicopters just looks like it's a box that's a green screen. It looks so fucking fake. And I'm like, this is the highest budget film ever. And
it was very groundbreaking at that point, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's massively groundbreaking. Massively groundbreaking. But again, I watched it when it came out. Massively groundbreaking. Yet they still look like they're not in a helicopter. They're just in a green screen box.
I do have a very controversial take on films, which triggers everybody.
Well, firstly, I want to say that that Marvel's Infinity Wars and Endgame Not good films.
I don't like Marvel that much. There are parts of it I like. For instance, I love the Deadpool films. I think they're hilarious.
Oh yeah, I agree.
That's just me in a nutshell. Shit housery for a couple of hours. It's fucking funny.
The
And
fucking the announcement of Deadpool 3. Have you seen both videos?
Yeah, like that's
truly fucking great marketing.
I can see that might smash box office records because it is going to be such a big thing, and it's just going to be pure stupidity as well. I like the films where they don't take themselves so seriously. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, really like that. Only seen the first one, but I thought that was excellent. Haven't seen the second one, so I can't comment.
The beginning of the second is a thing of beauty. Just the credits, the beginning credits of that film it's James Gunn. It's just James Gunn all over. It's beautiful.
What he does is just very, very well done. He brings brightness to an audience, so I think that's why I like them so much. My massive controversial take on all things Marvel, and I don't think it was done under the Disney banner or even the Marvel banner as such, although it is a Marvel property. I think that the last Fantastic Four film is quite a good film. Fantastic Four. I think it's quite good. It's universally hated and decreed as one of the worst superhero films of all time, and I do not understand why.
I don't think it was as bad as the original two Fantastic Four films. I remember watching it and thinking this isn't as bad as it could have been, but I remember not enjoying it. But I think that's just because I don't really enjoy the Fantastic Four as a property.
You know what frustrates me though is, so if I say that, and I've said it a lot, especially in conversations down the pub, whatever, people go bananas, particularly hardcore Marvel fans, comic book fans of the Marvel variety. But I always say to them, I always ask them the same question: why is it so shit in your eyes? Why do you hate it so much? And I never get legitimate reasons. Oh, it just is. Well, that's not good enough. I want to know why. So the casting is excellent. Like Michael B. Jordan is one of the best actors of our generation, and he's phenomenal. I don't know if people were triggered by the idea of Johnny Storm being black, in which case, grow the fuck up.
Probably, you know? Fucking dicks. Him as Johnny Storm was tremendous.
He's fucking great. I loved the emotional fragility of the Thing and how he got turned into the Thing and how he was like, it was really unsettling because when you watch original Fantastic Four, I was like, hi, I'm a big rock man and it's all fun and games, and actually it's like, no, that's fucking harrowing, that's disturbing.
I think that's probably why it wasn't liked that much, because in a sea of
some big Hulk like smashing creature having fun.
No, because it was a darker version of it, and it was the first proper dark Marvel film. Everything else has had like kind of a light air to it, where it was the first properly dark.
That's why I liked it so much, I think.
Yeah, but I think that's why it was. Yeah, that's why it was properly panned.
He's amazing in that. I think he's incredible.
I need to give it another watch. I do need to give it another watch.
Like
I will always say,
the scene where he's going through the corridor and making people's heads explode, and there's like the music and the tension and the way it's filmed. He's brilliant. It's a masterpiece. I think it's fucking great. Like, and it's not perfect by any means, but it's, for me, one of the better movies. Another one, I loved the last iteration of X-Men films. I thought they were amazing.
I remember liking Days of Futures Past. I still don't think I've watched. Is it Apocalypse?
Apocalypse was my favorite.
I've still not watched it.
Loved it. And the Dark Phoenix, the Rise of the Dark, or however it's called, you know, Jean Grey, when she sort of turns into that, you know, superpower. I thought that was really well done as well.
I didn't enjoy New Mutants. I found it a bit dull, but I haven't watched the other two, so I can't comment. But again, it's not down to me. It's not down to me not wanting to see them because I've heard shit things. Just not got round to it.
I think everyone's got hard on for what Disney does, and I don't understand why. I don't get it.
Because it's light. Because people like light films.
Yeah, well, I don't. So I guess that's why it is. But you know, but the thing is, I can enjoy some of the light films. I like the Iron Man films, for instance. I think they're really good. You know, they're pretty decent. First one in particular stands out to me. I actually really like number 2. I thought Mickey Rourke's character was great in that. But, you know, like, I think Marvel overall is the most overrated property in movie history.
I'll go with it because I think because it is so big and everything is so bright and all the stories are interconnected and it all means something and there's always a post-credit scene and it's always teasing something later on. People now say they're Marvel fans, by which they mean the Marvel. I don't get all gatekeepery, but they mean they're Marvel film fans. If you ask them what comic book, they're like, "Oh, I don't like comic books," where they don't see that there is still a join there. There is still something there. There is a basis to everything, you know. But because everything's so light, and it started off so light as well, people like them, and people now want to see those type of things later on down the line. Whereas you get something like Batman, and because there's not a new Batman film out every other year, they're not liked as much. And I will admit, Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, not great films.
I think Man of Steel
Massively
is
good.
amazing.
I didn't enjoy it.
One of my favorites. Brilliant.
I thought. Do you remember? So we spoke about the Fast Show last week, didn't we?
Yes, yeah, love it.
There was a sketch in a Fast Show, which was called The Great Long Punch Up. Charlie Higson and Paul Whitehouse on the edge of a canal for some fucking reason, and one of them hits the other one gets hit. One of them hits the other one gets hit. That is the last half an hour of Man of Steel.
Isn't that? I mean, you could argue that's the entire Batman versus Superman film. Again, Batman versus Superman. The only issue I have with it is it's too long. Other than that, I liked it. I did. What it is the great setup for everything that comes afterwards.
Yeah.
And people were expecting it to be. I thought the stuff with Batman versus Superman was really good. The scene where he rips the car door off and he stood over him is very cool, and he kind of rises out. You know, I liked it. I did. I thought it was fine. I really like the casting. I really like Ben Affleck's Batman. I thought he was actually really good.
I think he's one of the best Batman.
Like, really underrated. I thought Henry Cavill fits the bill
beautifully. Oh, he's a great Superman.
I don't want to see anyone else play Superman.
No, I'm the same. I fucking loved the Zack Snyder Justice League film.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the original or the director's one.
I didn't mind the original. I genuinely found the original Justice League film better than the Avengers.
The argument I've heard about the director's cut, I believe, or Zack Snyder's version of it, is that apparently they went and dubbed over Superman's face. There's a lot of CGI or something. Apparently
there is a lot of CGI in the
where they've modified like his speech and what he says and things like that. But
there's a lot of that in the Joss Whedon one, not in the Zack Snyder one. It's all kind of proper stuff. I can see people's argument with it, but a lot of people will turn around to me and go, "Oh, it's too long. It's too long. There's no need for most of it." I'm like, dude, you like Lord of the Rings films. Shut the fuck up.
Have you seen The Revenant?
No.
What it is a beautiful looking film with a decent enough story about it. Tom Hardy is probably the best part of it, in my opinion, not Leonardo DiCaprio. Tom Hardy should have won the Oscar, not him. And it did feel like, go on then, you may as well have an Oscar because you haven't had one before. It just felt like it was gifted to him. It didn't feel like he'd earned it. No, I could talk about controversial films all day. Like, there's so many that jump out to me. I mean, what else? I'll tell you what, a good thing would be for you to just list films that you think are garbage that are universally loved, and I'll let you know what I think of them.
I think we will do that another time.
Yeah.
Just because I think it'd be good to actually physically get a list together rather than just doing it.
That'll be true. Yeah,
we will properly fucking organize it.
We'll dedicate an episode to it. But I've noticed that maybe this is because I'm very anti-conformist, as people know. I love to push back against societal ideas. And for me, I think the more somebody says they hate something, the more I'm inclined to check it out to see what it's like. Because I want to know why you hate it as well, not just is it hated or not. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a really funny story, which hopefully you'll enjoy. So which Avengers film is it when Thanos clicks his fingers and half of them disappear?
That is Infinity War.
So is that the one where you see the flashback of him where he meets Gamora when she's a small child?
I don't know.
I think it is. So I went to the cinema with my friends Dan and Adam, right? Couple of jock lads when I was at Royal Mail, you know, a lot younger than me, just, you know, a bit like Cam, very similar to Cam, bless him. And there's that scene where Thanos, you get a throwback. I think it might be that. I think it is the one where he clicks his fingers. And so basically.
Oh, hang on a second. Spoiler. Carry on.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! He kills half the universe. So at this point, kind of on your own on that. But yeah, no, there's like a sort of flashback scene where he first arrives at Gamora's world, and you find out that he basically wipes out this society and takes her as his daughter. And so he's like really nice to her, and he's like, you know, essentially he's like, you know, hello, you, like, you know, I'm going to show you a different world, one of understanding. You know, it's like a teaching moment. And I always remember this to this day. As he's walking away with it, obviously he's huge, and he found massive. And Gamora's this tiny little child, and he's holding on to her hand. I think she's only holding on to like one finger or whatever. And as they're walking away, my mate Adam turns around and goes, "Fucking hell, he's gonna destroy her."
Fuck beans.
At the top of his voice. At the top of his voice in a packed cinema watching Avengers, and just the sheer rage that it induced from everyone in the room. Hell. I just started howling with laughter. Not because that's like the concept, it's just the fucking moment in itself. And obviously he doesn't legitimately think that's the case. But like the amount of people who were like, how dare you, or shut the fuck up, like it just induced rage from the room. And I just remember just fucking howling to the point where we were asked to leave.
Love it. Absolutely fucking love it.
Utterly brilliant. I've never fucking laughed so hard in the cinema in all my life, and I've seen some incredible comedies at the cinema. Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved it. Yeah, I love moments like that. Moments that
same.
Are so unacceptable in our society, but so funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
so you know Sam Gradwell?
Yes,
he used to do a lot of wrestling in Morecambe.
He's from Blackpool originally, isn't he?
Yeah. He even joined in with a wrestling school in Morecambe as well when that was a thing. And they used to go to student shows, and I used to go because my mate Lewis was one of them as well. Evil Lewis, who I mentioned before. And he used to be called RJM, Ricky J. McKenzie. And I was asked after this show, I was asked not to drink at shows because, again, like I said the other week in the podcast that we did together for Wrestle Plug, the Morecambe crowd can shout occasionally, but everything will just usually be dead. And again, no one was playing at all, so I thought I'd have a bit of a laugh. He came out with RJM down his leg. And it was the day where I thought, you need to have a look at your font, because it just looked like he had the word rim down his leg. So when he started doing stuff, I just used to go, come on, rim, which again, people weren't impressed with. But his tag, his kind of catchphrase, if you will, used to be, who's your daddy?
That does now.
Who's your daddy? Apparently, he wasn't impressed when I shouted out, probably your mum.
I love the simplicity of it.
Yeah. It's one of the heckles that I thought up way back in the day when I was doing stand-up of someone, because there was one time where a couple of people used to have, I've had a couple back and forths with people. One of my best ones was someone shouting out, and I've still got a recording of it. I've just gone, cheers, mate. Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, I haven't done this that much. I'm still relatively new to this. You've obviously been a cunt all your life. You've got to give me some sort of chance. Huge fucking roar from the audience. It was amazing. Another one I thought of that I've never been able to do yet. Just if someone keeps on shouting out, I'll just go, mate, why is it that you want our attention? Did your mum not give enough to you when you were younger? Fuck, did your dad give you too much? Is that the thing? And then people laugh and go, oh, that's like, oh, don't laugh. It's standard. It's Pavlovian. He doesn't know who his dad is. And then again, ooh, no, don't laugh at that. Another Pavlovian one.
Jack
He knows
D's really
exactly.
good at that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Just go,
remember
yeah.
somebody shouting, "Where's your widget?" at him because he did a lot of the John Smith's adverts, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him turning around and saying, "Where's your widget? Oh, you're going to be very sorry you said that." And at some point, the guy stands up to like take the applause of the room, and he goes, "I don't think they were applauding you, but sorry to take the wind out of your sails." Or is it a shirt? I'm not entirely sure. And it's just simple little things like that where it's just so
Yeah.
brutally dry and just right in there, like snide as shit. And the best heckle that I've ever heard is and that was put down in the easiest way was do you know who Colin Cole is? He's
No.
he's a New Zealand stand-up who now lives over here, New Zealander, and he's 6'9", and he was a professional wrestler in New Zealand, and I didn't even realize he was a wrestler at the time. And he literally dwarfs, like he's he's like the Undertaker, he's massive, and this guy just shouts something like so benign at him, like "you're shit," and he just turns around and he says, "Are you a heckler, mate?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Think about it." The guy just sits right back down again. This is that thing of like, that guy will literally strip my skin off, man.
Yeah.
I love stand-up because it's like wrestling. It's so similar to wrestling, the amount of crossovers. It's something I'd really like to do, but I don't think right now I have the mental stomach or the acumen to do it.
It's why I stopped for so long. It's exactly why I stopped for so long. And it's why I'm wanting to get back into it, but I don't think I've got the guts to again at the moment. Because I've had some of my problem was I like it when people don't like me. I don't mind that. I love it when people like me. Apathy for me is one of the worst things that can happen.
But that must be surely the worst. Like, I've never heard a stand-up who hasn't subscribed to that theory of there's nothing worse than just utter silence, because that means nobody cares. Same as a wrestler.
Yeah.
If you come out and get booed or ironically cheered or whatever it is, as long as you're getting a reaction, you've earned your value. If you come out and it's just silence, if you're like, "Come on," or whatever it is, and there's nothing there, people are like, huh, like that hurts, because then you have no value. You have no purpose. You have no point.
Like, I've done a Comedy Store Gong show, and Comedy Store Gong shows, they basically ask people to heckle and give them shit.
Okay.
And I fucking died on my ass.
Really?
But I didn't care. I'm embarrassed by it. I haven't watched it. I've still got it. I've got the DVD of it pinned up on a corkboard in my hall. I will not watch it because I don't want to relive my embarrassment. Doesn't mean I feel bad about it, because everyone has those gigs. Everyone has gigs where you go down badly.
Just randomly, I'm going to remove there's a giant wood louse just running around in my thing, but please carry on. I'm just going to leave it in because it's just fucking.
No, it's fine. It's what we do.
Out, that's what you get for living in the country. Out you go.
Yeah, I've had shows where they're just apathetic, and they don't notice you've gone because they don't notice you've been there. And that feels fucking weird. It really does. But
that must intensify things like depression and anxiety.
Oh, very much so.
All of a sudden, your brain is thinking, "Wow, I'm so pointless," that people didn't even recognize that I was on a stage in front of them.
Yeah, no, very much so. And I've had so the video that I sent you, and the video that's on the beginning of the podcast we did, is one of my Beat the Frog entries. I obviously got to 5 minutes and it all went well. At the end, everyone goes on for a clap off. And again, it was the apathy, because people got claps, some people got loads, some people got a few. I got confusion where people were just like,
because the first joke hits so well.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, like, I enjoyed it because of the relatability. But I noticed that the audience didn't respond really at all after that. And then
Yeah.
I noticed you were sort of somewhat cut off at the end.
That's because I got to the 5 minutes and
Okay.
yeah. But I don't. One big thing that I could try and kind of with the longer form stuff. My problem is I do longer form stuff. I don't just do little
Yeah,
jokes here,
5
there, and
minutes is
everywhere.
not long enough to do long form comedy.
No. But the material I'm writing at the moment is about me being a father because that's what I am. People don't want to hear about being a dad unless they particularly want to come out and see you. Me doing a kind of, open mic night. No one wants to hear about a depressed bloke being a father at all. Me doing that joke at the beginning's good because it's a good, like, hard hitting joke. But then it's like, yeah, fair enough. You're a dad. Move on. Don't just talk about your shit. But I've also had some gigs that I've enjoyed because of the spontaneity of it. So there was one gig that I still remember it now. I was performing and there was like a scuffle down here of two lasses. And I turned around, I went, "Are you two all right?" And she goes, "Yeah, she's taking my phone off me so I don't drunk text." And I just said, I turned around back around to the main audience and go, "Right, this is more interesting than my material. So I'll be with you in a moment." Turn back around and I just go, "What? Do you often drunk text?" She goes, "Yeah, I do occasionally." And I go, "And do you often have to take a phone off her?" And she goes, "Oh, I've only just met her tonight." And I go, "You've only just met her tonight and you're stopping someone else from making a drunk fool of themselves?" She goes, "Yeah, she goes, "Yeah, I'm an angel." I went, "Oh, right, you don't look it." And that got a fucking huge laugh. But again, spur of the moment, me just having a bit of a giggle. That is what I love. Occasionally having that
I think some
urge.
people work better in a conversational piece with comedy than they do on stage. Ross Noble is one that stands out to me. I don't find him funny at all in stand-up, but when I watch him on Have I Got News for You, he is fucking hilarious. It's that thing of, I believe you're funny in both, but from what I'm getting is that you like more reactive comedy, improv and stuff like that, where you're having to react to things that are living, breathing moments. And that's
It's a
something
difficult
that
one
I enjoy more.
because I do like doing that. I love doing that, and I'd love to be able to do it more. But with that type of stuff, you have to have the trust of an audience, which is why I can get away with it more when I'm doing wrestling because the audience now has that trust in me. Can't do that now. I can't do that at a stand-up gig because no one knows who the fuck I am. I can't go out with no material whatsoever and just have a chat with people. It's something I've got to work at. But I also like writing. I also like having that thing, that being able to tell long jokes. There's a joke that I love, but again, because it's true. And fuck it, I'll say it now because why the fuck not? So with my son, I worry that I'm a bad influence, and I'm told many, many times that I'm a bad influence because I just say stuff when I think it's funny, or not even when I think it's funny. I just sometimes say stuff in the moment. I remember my first date with my ex. We went to the cinema, and there was a poster for an autistic friendly version of Smurfs 2. And apparently that just means that the noise is good. The top and bottom of the audio is taken out and it's just the middle. And the colors are died down a bit, so it's less busy. It just makes it easier for people. I didn't know any of this at all. I was in a bit of a giddy mood. So what I did was I pointed at it and just went, "How is it?" very loudly. Right? Now I knew when I started pointing, I knew what was happening. But there's one or two things that can happen there. You either realize what you're doing and back away from it, or you can just lean into it.
Commit.
So I leant into it. And I did not stop pointing until I was answered. Right? So that's the type of person I am. Something I didn't realize is that influences other people. because other people can feel that way around me as well. They feel like they can say something and it can be funny, it can not be funny, but there'll be no judgment or anything like that. I didn't realize how bad an influence I was until an American friend of mine. Now, I preempt this with a bit of a trigger warning because it does talk about the subject of abortion. Basically, my friend, she's American. She's now gone back to America, but she lived over here for many years. She had a very abusive ex, and she phones me up one night about 10 o'clock and goes, I need to talk to you about something. And I said, what? She goes, I just need you to come here. So I went over to her house and she said what had happened. She wasn't abused in that situation. It wasn't like a very bad impregnation, but she'd got pregnant and she didn't know what to do. And all I did then was sit there, chat to her a little bit, but listen to her. Listen to her until like 4 o'clock in the morning when she said, I do think that I'm going to get termination. And we spoke about that for a while longer. And she decided to go for it, and fucking more power to her, you know.
That's her choice, yeah.
I said, right, absolutely fine. Do you want me to come with you on the day? I can just book time off work. I'll come with you on the day. She goes, no, but can you come round at night and make sure I've got something to eat? Just make sure I'm fed. So yeah, absolutely fine. The day comes, she goes for her appointment. She comes back and I go round to hers and I walk through the door with food. And she immediately turns around to me and goes, I can't fucking believe you did this. And I went, literally nothing to do with me. I've not touched you. And she goes, no, it's your fault this happened. I went, how is it my fault? She goes, no, not that. Said, okay. She went to the doctors. She had a procedure.
Uh-oh.
Went fine. She got through post-op. She went and sat down, waiting for the taxi because she couldn't drive there or back.
Yeah.
And a nurse comes up to her and goes, are you okay? She goes, yeah, I've just had my procedure. I'm waiting to go home. She goes, oh, is someone coming to pick you up? She goes, yeah, I'm getting a taxi in a second. Nurse goes, have you got everything you came with? She goes, I fucking hope not. Apparently that was my fault.
That's so dark, but so funny.
But that's it. And
yeah.
she just, I said, how is that my
fair
fault?
Play, fair play to her. Like, I like how you got blamed for that. Yeah, like you are a bad influence.
But she turned around and says, because you make me so comfortable that I can just say fucking anything, that I was in a dark mood and I wanted to say something to make myself laugh.
I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, yeah.
But I didn't realize how true that was until a couple of months later. She decided to leave. She decided to go back to America. And she was getting shot of all her belongings. She didn't want to take much back with her. She didn't want all the memories and all that type of stuff. We were there at her leaving party, and there was me, and I didn't really get on with the friends, but I was there to support her. Loads of people sat around this table in a pub called the Yorkshire House in Lancaster, which is like a rock pub. Not there anymore, unfortunately. And she's talking about her having to give her stuff away and stuff. And she says, yeah, and I just need to try and get rid of this fucking rabbit. She had a rabbit. She just need to get rid of this fucking rabbit. And I turned around to her and said, why is it you want to get rid of everything you need to look after?
Oh, fuck me.
The thing is, none of her friends knew what had happened. So she just fucking looked at me like that. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, and I just went, well, she fucking unloaded a load of plants onto me. And they went, oh, okay, fair enough. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I would have been howling, to be fair. I can't say howling.
But again, it was only me who knew. So it wasn't like anyone else could get in on the joke. She was fucking furious.
Have fun in America.
Now that I can't get away with in 5 minutes.
That's true. That's very true.
I did the beginning of that joke in one of the previous Frog and Buckets that I did, and it went down well, but because of the preamble before the high point of the joke, it's a difficult push. It's a dark push to go for.
Mm.
So the audience properly needs to trust you if you're going for that joke.
Yeah, they'd expect that from like a Ricky Gervais or something. They'd be settled in, or a Jimmy Carr. They'd expect that because they've
Not
already
even
built
that.
up that
You
foundation.
can, yeah, but you can. I think any comedian can get away with a joke that dark. But you've got to. The audience has got to get to know you. So obviously, hopefully, you guys, the people who are watching this and listening to it, and hopefully you yourself, Aaron, you know me well enough to know I'm not a cruel person.
Mm.
Nothing is said out of cruelty. It's all said out of jest. It's all said out of love. I will never joke about something that I don't like. I will always just be venomous because I think if you don't like something and you're trying to joke about it, people will think you like it a little bit, and I just fucking don't. I think you can't have that air of wonder when it comes to hating things. But an audience would need to get to know me to realize that I don't do those things out of cruelty. It is out of love, and it is out of just being naughty and a bit, mischievous. Whereas someone like Ricky Gervais is not doing it out of being naughty and mischievous. He's just a bit of a bellend. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, just like wrestling, it's the most subjective form, isn't it? Comedy.
Oh, very much so. Very, very much so. There is something I'm going to do. It might come out at some point. I have managed to get a hold of a copy of it, though. There is a gentleman called Rob Rouse who is in the show Upstart Crow. Have I shown you a video of him?
I know Rob Rouse. I've seen him.
Very, very funny bloke.
Yeah.
Very, very funny bloke. I was up at Edinburgh this year, and I saw a show by a lady called Michelle Brazier, who was in a group. She helps out with Auntie Donna. Have you ever seen them?
No.
Oh, mate. Oh, mate. Oh, you have to watch something. That's what's going to. So after this, I'm going to do quick sending you a share screen of stuff because that's what I do. But so she helps out with them. She did a show up at Edinburgh called Average Bear, which was hysterical, but also heartbreaking and very touching. On this day, I hadn't taken my antidepressants for 4 days because I was stupid enough to leave them at home. And so an emotional show was made even more emotional. And I did a bit. She ended the show by going, "If any of you are sad, if any of you just need a hug, I'm going to be there for you after the show. I'll stay around. I will hug you. I am here for you." And that fucking sent me even worse. Someone being that lovely and that caring to people she's never even met just made me feel even more emotional. I had to go to the toilet and have a bit of a cry, and then was on the verge of tears for an hour. And then I ended, and then the next show I went to go and see was Rob Rouse's show. It was called No Refunds. And it ended with a song I'm going to show you in a bit. But it ended with a song about a little horse. That's all I will say. But it was such a beautiful juxtaposition. It's why I love Edinburgh so much. Where you can go and see a show that's that beautiful and heartbreaking, yet the next show you go and see is fucking ridiculous. Did you notice in the State of Wrestling podcast, right at the end, did you notice a bit on my video?
No.
You didn't notice anything? You couldn't see anything? You couldn't see something small and surprising and
No.
just
That went right over my head.
you couldn't see Dick Thumb?
No.
That came out of Rob Rouse's show.
Brilliant.
Because part of it was talking about doing Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, one thing you can learn about being in business is one good tactic is to use Dick Thumb and bring it up a little bit. You can have it coming in from the side, just occasionally just pop it like that. And it fucking did me in. but right at the end of the State of Wrestling podcast, you can just see a little dick thumb coming up.
I'm normally very attentive to detail, so this is full disclosure. When I edit the podcast, which admittedly I don't really take anything out, I just kind of unless there's something extremely dangerous. And
I still haven't watched the Benoit bit.
Oh, I left that in.
Oh, sweet. That's all right then.
Yeah, I was just like, no, I didn't take anything out in the end. I thought I was gonna take a couple because the boys were like edit, and I just thought, nah, it's not that bad. We've
I didn't mention anything about it.
Well, no, yeah, you didn't come out and say I love Chris Benoit, obviously.
No, and I didn't make light of anything.
Yeah, exactly. I am one of those people who believes that anything with the right tone and the right cadence can be funny anyway. And I don't think we should leave things off the table because I think we're then deliberately oversensitizing ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I did dick thumbs. So watch back over it right near the end. You get a dick thumb.
Excellent. Hopefully that'll boost the views.
Touch wood.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Literally.
I'm surprised nobody's timestamped at the end. Dick.
Yeah, maybe. So we shall wrap up because I'm going to show you a couple of bits. But we're obviously going to do a podcast in a little while regarding lists of films that we can have controversial views about. One other thing I want to do, I think you've mentioned before, you're not a fan of scary films.
No, can't stand them.
What kind of scary films?
Anything that's like gore or unnecessary horror or like slashers. I'm not a fan of anything with sexual assault or torture-based stuff. Things like that. Maybe that's a trigger more so than anything else. Sexual assault is a trigger for me, but I've never enjoyed it anyway. I remember it. Fun little story for you to kind of wrap it up with. When I was 10, Jurassic Park came out, and I was taken to the cinema to see Jurassic Park, and I was terrified. So terrified, in fact. It's hard to believe because I watched it now, but like, dinosaur. But like, I was so terrified at the time. The bit when he gets stuck in the car with the spitter, and then the car starts shaking. He's obviously been killed by this dinosaur. Freaked me out so much. I had a breakdown in the cinema, and so badly, in fact, that they took me out. And I remember it was the cinema in Caution, which is no longer there. It's now a block of flats. And the guy was so lovely, the young lad who was working in there. And he said, "What do you like, mate?" And I was like, "I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles." I went, "Well, good news. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 has just come out." And he put me in the cinema, and I watched that, and I was happy as Larry for 2 hours. So
nice.
But it's that thing of like, yeah, no, like, people look at me and they're like, what a tough bastard, or he's gone through so much. But yeah, no, I'm the kid who got taken out of the cinema because I freaked out over a T-Rex eating a guy on the toilet.
Yeah, but that's petrifying.
Couldn't go to the toilet. Could not go to the toilet. My mum had to like stand by the door every time I went to the toilet for about a year because I was so scared shitless a dinosaur was going to eat me. Most 10-year-olds now...
You mean I now don't have to do that to you?
I mean, if you want to, like,
Why do you make me do it?
I mean, I don't know. I just like to explore our boundaries. That's all.
He calls me every time he goes to the toilet because he doesn't want to be alone.
Because I want to see Dick Farm, innit?
I've taken it off. Yeah, just because obviously it's October coming up.
Halloween.
Spooky month.
Yes.
I was thinking we could review horror films, but obviously ones that don't freak you out too much.
There are certain films that come under the horror genre that I like. I like M. Night Shyamalan stuff. I particularly like Signs because it just chills me more so than terrifies me. The one horror film that is quite, unique that I did like is Us, the second Jordan Peele film.
Yeah.
I thought that it did have me on edge. I was like, Jesus Christ. But it was brilliant. And I remember the ending, especially thinking, that's fucking sick. Like, the twist was really well done. Because it was more focused on acting than just trying to outright scare me. And I think that's why I liked it.
I preferred Get Out.
I haven't seen Get Out, so I need to watch that. So,
well, there we go. That's your first one.
There we go. But there are films like... If you
How are you
accumulate a
with
list of films, I'll watch them.
Yeah. How are you with comedy gore?
Providing that it is funny, like I think I'm okay. I think if it's got sexual assault in it, I won't watch it.
No.
That's why I won't watch Game of Thrones. So but I think comedic gore to a certain degree. Like I've seen Piranha 3D, that's bloody awful. Like just terrible. Albeit I did get to see, Kelly Brook dancing away, which was very nice. Very nice indeed. But yeah, no, I just don't really go near the genre at all anymore.
So before the next podcast, then there's a film you need to watch, which is Get Out.
Okay.
I really want you to see a film called Ready or Not, because I think it's one of the best films that's been out in a long while. One of my favorite films from a couple of years ago. Samara Weaving is in it. Adam Brody is in it. And did you see Orphan Black? Oh, mate, that's a series you need to watch. But a dude from Orphan Black's in it as well. It's a horror-ish film. It's about a young couple who get married. The girl gets married into a board game family, got rich making board games. And there's a tradition in the family that at night they put a card into this mystical box that's blank. They close the box, then they open it back up again, and it has a game printed out on it. And they have to play whichever game that it comes out as. It can be Hangman, it can be fucking anything. It comes out as hide and seek. And that's all I will say about it. It's good. It's very, very good.
Okay.
But for next time, watch Get Out, and we will review and talk about Get Out. Namely because it's an excuse for me to watch it as well.
Okay, cool. No problem. Sorted. There you go. So no doubt I'll be a nervous wreck for the next one.
Probably. Probably. Any thoughts before we go?
Not really. Obviously, for anyone who is watching this, because they're pre-recorded, but hopefully we'll start catching up and then recording them kind of so that, because I really want to interact with people as well. I'd love to do like a mailbag sort of thing and stuff like that. So anyone's watching, like, please don't hesitate to like contact us, send messages, leave comments, stuff like that. And yeah, no, I like it. It's very kind of therapeutic and it's very different, and it's lovely to be involved in a project that doesn't involve me cursing somebody for not slamming someone correctly or whatever it might be. Like, it's nice to have something refreshing, and it's always nice to enjoy a new friendship and see it blossom. So yeah, very grateful for the process.
And I've yet to show him my balloon knot, everybody. Yet. Not saying it won't happen.
I'm ready.
Namely, because I need someone to help apply ointment.
That's fair. I'm ready for the next level.
With your finger, dirty boy. So,
can't have any fun these days.
You can't. It's true. So that is Silent the Death Machine for this week. My name is Silent Mark.
My name is Aaron Nix, the Death Machine.
We shall see you next time. Love you. Bye.
Bye. Love you. Bye. I would do the salute, but that's a WrestlePod thing. Bye.
Right. I'll get it out now.
Get out. Oh, not again. I'm leaving.
The light went off. You couldn't see it.
In the case of your penis, and in the case of this edit, I'm leaving it.
Also, yes.